Hey, good morning. Look at this place. All right, I don't want to tell you too much about it because I don't want to give away the story, but I found a really great place to read today. All right, so I'm just going to enjoy my time here, but I'm going to read chapter 16 for you because we did 15 yesterday. All right, so we did chapter 15 yesterday, and we saw that Kimba got stuck somewhere in a cave in those mountains behind me, and he couldn't get out because the others came, and then that little baby, one of the others was a baby, came and saw the song. Okay, and the woman saw him, or the dog at least. I think I can't remember now, and she screamed, and all the hunters grabbed their weapons. So now we're going to find out what happened to Kimba. Chapter 16. Only a few paces within the tunnel, the sunlight faded. Kimba, withdrawing swiftly, knew he could not be seen here. He stared at the others hulking in the oval entrance to the passageway. They muttered and stamped their feet, but they would not venture further into the tunnel. The boy felt sure. They lived in the huge outer chamber, and like his tribe and all tribes, they feared darkness. And then orange light poked through the entranceway. Torches! They did intend to penetrate deeper into the tunnel. Kimba pushed himself away from the wall. A savage cry went up. The first torchbearer had spotted his darting shadow. The others knew now that something more than a wandering wild dog had invaded their domain. They pressed forward, shouting. Perhaps the tunnel came to a dead end, Kimba thought with fright. Perhaps they knew he was already trapped. Could you imagine? He has no clue. Kimba doesn't know if the tunnel ends or not, or if it keeps going. All right. He kept his arms outstretched to prevent his body from smashing into a wall if the corridor should take an unexpected turn. He's running blindly. He's just running. Though absolutely nothing was visible, he still sprinted as if he were running across a meadow at midday. It was a great danger, but to proceed more cautiously and let the others catch up to him would be more dangerous still. He tried to follow the sound of the dog, the clicking of its claws, the quick intakes of its breath. He heard it veer to the left, and then he turned too. Something struck him on the forehead so hard that the impact rang out in a clear, deep tone. He reeled back in pain, then reached forward. It was one of the slim stone icicles that filled this cavern, stalactite. Behind him, voices grew louder, echoing and re-echoing. He sped forward again, aware that he could no longer hear the dog. He collided with the wet limestone, wrenching his wrist. He swerved, took a new direction, and again banged into a solid wall. So this poor kid who's already been beaten and been through so much, now he has a huge knot on his head. He's probably dizzy from that. His wrist is all messed up, and now he ran into the wall again. Desperately, he patted the wall, seeking an outlet. This could not be a solid barrier. The dog had somehow gone on from this point. His hand suddenly slipped through into thin air. There was an opening. Quickly, he traced its limits. It was tiny, but that did not trouble him. The smaller it was, the less likely the others would be to enter it. Kimba crawled into the hole. It funneled him into what seemed a larger corridor, perhaps even a large chamber. He was able to stand again, and once more he heard the tick, tick, tick of the dog's breathing. The boy reached out a hand and touched the reassuring bulk of that big furry head. Then the dog loped on, and Kimba continued after it. He walked now, certain that the others would not attempt to squeeze through that narrow opening. Their cries sounded hollow in the distant. Kimba paused for a moment to look back. A bright patch of fire swirled into view. One of the torchbearers had made it through the hole. Another torch appeared. They were still after him. Kimba took flight. They would never stop, it seemed. Arms extended, he ran like a stag pursued by a panther, blindly, numbed by panic. The voices behind him rose in volume, exultant, crashing fiercely against the roof and walls of the cave. There was a sudden snarling directly in front of him. Kimba tripped. His head and arms slammed onto the floor, and he rolled over twice. Dazed but conscious that he had to keep fleeing, Kimba pushed himself to his knees. I'm okay. Pushed himself to his knees. His probing fingers encountered the dog. Why had it so clumsily gotten in his way? He asked himself, why had it not led him out of here instead of blocking him? He wobbled to his feet. The torches came nearer. The shouts grew more piercing. Kimba took a step forward, and his foot touched nothing. He knelt and let his arm dangle. There was nothing. They stood at the rim of a cliff. If the dog had not tripped him in his headlong rush, he would have plunged over the edge. But they had to get past the precipice. He scrambled along the rim, groping for a way to cross or a trail down. There was no telling how high the cliff was because it's all black. It's in a cave. You can't see anything. It might be an immense distance to the bottom, or it might be only an easy jump. He has no clue. Would you take the jump? Like comets fallen from the night sky, the torches whirled toward him. In their light, ugly shadows danced distortedly. The others saw Kimba, and they roared like hungry saber-tooths. There might be a path around the precipice, but there was no time now to find it. Kimba climbed over the edge. He held on with both hands while his feet kicked and dug into the side of the cliff. But it was sheer, meaning straight up and down, with no chinks to cling to. The first of the torchbearers rushed up, screeching. Kimba looked into a knotted, hate-filled face. The boy let go of the edge. He just dropped from the cliff. The magic ivory from the one tusk, he thought. Now Rab would never see it. Then he heard a splash, and icy water enveloped him. Kimba's arms and legs flailed, and his head popped back up above the surface. He took in air with great sobbing gulps. A spear flashed into the water beside him. The others, waving their torches, capered about on the edge of the cliff, only a short distance above. Another spear was flung. Kimba ducked his head and patted furiously with his arms and legs, as he had seen wolves do in crossing a deep stream. He did not know if beings such as he could keep themselves on the surface of the water, or if they would plunge to the bottom like rocks. He cast out this thought and told himself only, I have the power. Invisible now in the murk, he tried to slip back toward the cliff, but the torches moved too and lined the area where he hoped to reach land. He saw that he was in an underground lake whose length and width he could not judge. Already the cold water was paralyzing him. He had to thrash wildly to stay afloat, and as long as he made such a noise, there was no way to propel himself back without the others hearing him and preparing a bloody reception. From their throats poured jeering abuse. They knew he could not last long in the frigid lake. Nearby, the water churned, and a small wave lapped against him. He was seized by a new fear. Perhaps it was a water monster, a being more dreadful than the mighty ones, or the woolly rhinoceros. But by the faint illumination of the torches, he saw it was the dog swimming out to him, its muzzle poked up. Its legs paddled frantically. Like Kimba, it was awkward in the water. They could not return to the cliff where the others were gathered, and bobbing helplessly, they could not much longer mark time where they were. All they could do, Kimba was aware, was head deeper into the lake. Perhaps it was not so wide that it could not be crossed. Kimba swung his arms like scoops and kicked hard. He would have to be quick. The cold was seeping into his bones, draining him of energy. Each splash of his arms and legs was an effort. Gasping, he touched the piece of tusk, making certain it was still lodged in the pouch around his waist. Then he struggled on. Beside him, the dog was breathing with difficulty, fighting to stay afloat. But the cold had slowed Kimba's wits as well as his limbs. He was dimly conscious of a sense of warmth in a cold, frigid lake underground in a cave. It felt pleasant not to move. His head sank under the water. Instantly, he shot up, sputtering to the surface. He redoubled his strokes. He must not do that again, he warned himself. He must keep battling. He was about to die. That's what that was. He was feeling, oh, it feels good not to move. I'm going to just drown. And then he realized what was happening, shot back up, and he kept fighting. He must use the power, he thought of himself as a fish, swift and powerful, accustomed to these cold waters. With a new burst of vitality, he seemed to slither forward. The blackness of the water and the blackness of the air seemed stitched into a single choking garment. But he kept envisioning himself as a lake creature with fins, naturally at home in this world where nothing could be seen. When suddenly there was light. It was, for a moment, alien to him. He wondered if it was just the sort of colored flashes that he sometimes produced by closing his eyes and rubbing them. But the light was real. Was it a torch? Were the others waiting on this side of the lake too? But no, this was the clean, clear light of day. It was faint and far away, but it was there. His outstretched hands felt something solid. Numbly, he realized he had made it across the lake. The ledge on this side was much closer to the water. Grunting, the boy pulled himself up onto it. Only then did he realize that he no longer had a spear. He heard the dog still thrashing in the water, and he called to it. The animal was more fatigued than Kimba and had to be hauled up almost a dead weight. It lay on one side, shivering and panting. Kimba, too, wanted only to stretch out and rest, but he had had enough of this dark, oppressive place. He could not bear to remain. The circle of daylight was too close, too tempting. So he dragged himself toward the light. It poured through a jagged hole in the cave. The patch of sunshine was like a golden hand extended to him. He ran, stumbling to the portal. He stepped through it to the outside and gazed about in wonder. This is what he saw. What's behind me? He saw this beautiful valley. Doesn't it look like a great valley? That's what it is, the Pleasant Valley or the Great Valley. He was in a vast, bowl-shaped green valley. There were gentle hills in the distance. Beyond them, the mountain range vaulted upward once more, and its heights were iced over. But on the nearby hillside, he saw herds of game. So just imagine all the grass behind me with tons and tons of herds of animals. He saw herds of game, musk oxen, bison, and reindeer. The meadows cut through by a reed-lined stream were a lush green. The sun was warm and friendly. Kimba picked for his shelter a hollow covered with pine needles in the side of a knoll. He began piling up rocks as a barricade, but before he had placed many of them, he was overcome by sleep. Night came and went without waking him. So he was sleeping like dead away sleeping. At dawn, he stirred and found the dog curled up beside him. They would have been an easy mark for predators, Kimba knew, but nothing had threatened them. This seemed like a good place, a place of refuge, a safe place, a good place. All morning, Kimba and the dog roamed the valley. The richness of it and the pleasant snap to the air put new vigor into his racked body. The thought of the urgency of return to the tribe never left him. He would not linger here, but he knew he had found a place that the tribe must be told of. I know a place where we can find plenty of animals, a great place. However, the problem is what? It's past the Forbidden Mountains. They're forbidden. They won't let them, they don't think they should go there. They're afraid of this place. Edible plants abounded, mushrooms, bilberries, wild lilies with their tasty bulbs. He stuffed his mouth eagerly as he walked. And then the dog pounced on a marmot. I don't know if you know what a marmot is, but it's like a big fat ground squirrel, a little bit bigger than a ground squirrel. And Kimba broiled its juicy meat over a fire. They ate until neither could manage a bite more. How joyous the tribe would be to find this haven, Kimba thought. He would lead them to it and its teeming herds. There were many caves and clefts in the base of the mountain where the members of the tribe could live. They would be protected by the mountain itself from the angry north winds of winter. If only Rab would be able to appreciate this valley too. If only there was still time. First he obtained the ivory from the one-tusk. Now he had come upon a land of wondrous hunting. But none of this would help until he returned to the tribe. We go, he said to the dog. None of the caves he had found in the valley appeared to run the width of the mountain. See, the other's cave goes through the entire mountain. Starts on one side of it and comes out the other. From the limited scouting he had done, he could discover no exit except the way he had entered. Kimba frowned, nibbling his lip. He could not swim back over that frigid expanse, but he would look it over again. He went back to the underground lake, taking his time, picking his way along the edge. At last he concluded that what he had suspected was there, a slippery path around the lake. There had been a trail. If he had known of it the day before, he could have fled his pursuers without that punishing swim. And had they known of it, they might have been waiting for him on the far side. But he was sure the others had never gone beyond their side of the lake. It was probably only under extraordinary circumstances that they dared go as far as they had. He doubted if they were even aware of this valley. But now to leave the valley, he must retrace his steps and pass through the stronghold of the others. He's got to go back through there. If he did not do that, he would have to keep searching for another route to the northern side of the mountain. There might be one, or there might not. Either way, it would require too much time to find out. How could he manage to travel through that cave of the others and not be stopped by them? How could the power be used to achieve this feat? What would Utrecht do? He thought of Utrecht, and he remembered something the sorcerer had shown him. I wonder if you remember. Kimba smiled. He and the dog would return to the tribe at once, and the others would not prevent them. So you're probably predicting right now, probably trying to figure out what it is he thought of that Utrecht had shown him, and that he can use to get past the others without being stopped and killed by them. All right, well, I'm going to enjoy this wonderful valley a little bit more. It's just too beautiful to pass up. I will see you guys. I will see you on Monday. So have a great weekend, and we will continue to read all about Kimba's adventures as he tries to get home to save Rab. All right, guys, take care. We'll see you. Bye-bye.